in where we are currently, but we really do need to look at our future, look at our strategic plan, see where we will be in 2015 and what we have achieved. So the board have been discussing the prospect of this building, what is suitable, whether we should stay or whether we should go. So we thought it's best to start the process. We have some independent advisors on board as well about the process of this building. So we're here now to ask you for your opinions and advice and support for us. It's great to see you all here today, this evening. Thank you for your time. All right, so I'm going to delegate the responsibility to facilitate tonight's session to the CEO, Christine Matheson. She will lead this process this evening, so over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome everyone, and welcome especially to those of you who have made time out of your busy lives to come along tonight. Oh, I wonder why that was it. Welcome everyone. We'll do it again. I just wanted to welcome all of you that have taken time out of your very busy lives to come along tonight to spend some time providing us with some feedback. You might have comments, you might have questions, and we're really keen to hear from you, as Max said, about the future of VicDef as it relates to the buildings that we need into the future, and in particular this building. What I'd also like to do is, before we start properly, is just talk to you a bit about the logistics for the session tonight. What we're doing for the second time in the last couple of months is, when we're holding a community session, we're actually live streaming so that people are able to watch this session through the video recording, either at home, they might be at work, they might be watching it on their iPad on the tram maybe, and we were talking before whether or not we can see the people at home and what they're wearing, and maybe someone might be sitting in the bath watching the session, but what we think is it's just them watching us, and they'll be able to see what's happening on this part of the stage. What we're also able to do, which we think is excellent and is a bit of a pilot for the way we can hold consultations into the future, is that people at home who are streaming in will be able to send in an SMS or an email to contribute to the discussion tonight. So we will have people who are not physically here, but who are participating through the streaming process, and Michael Parrymore is going to read any comments or questions that we have through that process. For the people who are at home or not with us tonight but who are streaming in, if you do send in a comment or some feedback or a question, if you're comfortable, it would be great if you could tell us your name and who you are, so that then we can add that into the conversation. What Michael will do is he will sign the question that comes in, or the comment, and then the interpreters will sign that back to the audience so that it's on the camera screen and for the people here, and the other interpreter will voice the question or the comment so that everyone's able to get the information. So it is new for us, the streaming process, so bear with us because we want to make sure that we try and get the technology right. We've allowed about an hour for this discussion, so if we take that long, that's fine. If we finish sooner, that's not a problem at all, but as I said at the outset, we're just really thrilled that you're able to make time to come along and share your views and your opinions with us today. For the people that are here, if you have a comment or a question, we would just request if you would please come up to the front if you're signing, and just sign from the front, and if you're hearing, if you come up to the front and use the microphone. So I'll try and just facilitate and manage that as we go along. So what I'd like to do now is just take you through a couple of PowerPoint slides that give you a bit of background to the process and the process we're undertaking and why we're doing it. As Max said, we are looking at what we're going to do in the future. This is a really exciting time in the community sector, but there's also a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty, and we're doing some really serious planning around what VicDev needs to be doing into the future, how we're organised for our services to the community. And one of the things that from time to time you need to look at is the buildings and the infrastructure that you have in order to deliver those services. We've been in this building for just over 10 years, and as Max said, the board has said, let's reflect on how useful this building has been for us and how useful is it as we move forward to deliver the services that we want to. As you know, VicDev is a statewide service provider, so we operate our head office out of this building. Sunshine and Frankston, and we have regional case managers that are in places like Bendigo and Ballarat and Geelong, and we have deaf access workers, and we also have our audiology service which runs out of this building but also Box Hill and Oakley, and some part-time offices in Lilydale and Geelong. So VicDev is a statewide service, and we have property that we occupy all around Victoria, but this building here at Albert Street is the only building that we own. The other buildings or premises are ones that we lease. What we want to do is, as I said, look at the function and the purpose and the facilities of this building. We want to make sure that what we decide and what the board decides in terms of our future is informed by the community. It's also informed by what the staff think, because they're important people who work in the organisation, and also what other stakeholders think about what we should do into the future.
Sorry, Chris, can we just for a second stop? We'll put that screen up online.
Okay.
And just give a few, just 10 seconds while those talk.
Okay.
And what about you, Chris?
I actually, follow Collingwood, and I just want you to know these are my own teeth, being a Collingwood supporter. The other thing we wanted to tell you as part of the background is that we've engaged some experts to help us with the process, and they're from a consultancy company called Ernst & Young, and tonight we'll just refer to them as EY, so Ernst & Young, and they're helping us to do the consultation process, and they have also been assisting us with an online survey which is up on our website, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of the session. Their role is to provide the board with independent advice about some of the options and recommendations that the board and VicDev needs to consider. Their expertise is in property and real estate and matching organisations' services to the types of property and buildings that you might need. So they've got lots of experience in working with organisations like ours, so we feel really fortunate that they're contributing to this process to assist us. stop now. Just hold, and we'll look at we'll pop that slide up for. Okay. So the next slide is just really talking about what we're here for tonight. It's trying to give you a bit of a guide as to the sorts of things that we want to cover off in our discussion tonight. And most of it's about hearing from you rather than us talking to you. But the sorts of things that we want you to think about and that are asked in the surveys are things like the suitability of the current offices. As you know, VicDef, this is a 5-storey building. VicDef occupies half of level 2, all of level 3 and all of level 4. And in the other floors, the other areas, we have some really important and close relationships with other deaf sector organisations. So we've got Deaf Victoria, we've got Deaf Sports Victoria, Deaf Sports Australia, ASLIA, a whole range of smaller providers like NRS Victoria is located in this building. So we've got some really important relationships with key organisations. And we also have major tenants, so other tenants who occupy some of the floors. And that's great for us because we don't need the whole building, and it gives us income, which is really important to our financial position. But when we're thinking about what we do in the future, it might be if we decided to move from this building, we wouldn't need something as large potentially, or maybe we would, and that's what we want to hear from you. Areas where the current offices need to be improved. This afternoon we met with some of the representatives from the Deaf Seniors group that meet here on a Thursday every so often, and they gave us some really valuable advice about just the amenity of the building, the facilities, the sorts of things that they see as the positives about being here, and also some of the challenges about being located in this building. We've also talked to staff, obviously, about what staff think. Many of you may know that we've got about 100 permanent staff at VicDef, and we've got about 100 casual staff, and many of the casual staff are interpreters. But we have, a considerable number of people who are in this building, but as I said, we've got people that are located out in our other sites as well. So it's important that we hear from staff. We also want to know what is the experience for our clients who actually come in and receive the services. What's the experience for them in coming into this sort of environment? And one of the things that's come up already is the reception area. We've got the information centre on the ground floor. We've got a reception centre on level 4. If you're here for hear service on level 2, there's another receptionist. So it's looking at things where we've got maybe a bit of duplication just because of the physical layout of the building. Something that we also want to hear from you about is if we did move from this building into the future, wherever that might be, is it that we should be thinking about co-locating with other organisations, other community organisations, other deaf sector organisations, or other options that you might think we need to consider? And the other thing we need to think about, especially with the National Disability Insurance Scheme and the changes that is going to have on funding and the services that we provide, is do we still need to have a big head office with smaller regional offices, or do we need to think about a more localised model where some of our services are delivered out in local areas in a different way to how they currently are? And that's one final thing that I'd like to say is these decisions are not just about the building or the property. It's about what are the services that we want to provide, how do we need to provide them to be responsive and flexible to the community, and then what is the building that you need to deliver those services. So we've got to put all of that in the mix as well, and Ernst & Young are very aware of those sorts of things that we need to consider. I might stop there just while you pop the slide up. You're right to, yeah, okay. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Andrew Lyle. Andrew may be familiar to some of you. He used to be the manager of our employment service, SenseWide, and just recently the board approved a proposal for VicDef to create a senior management portfolio which focuses on strategy and service design. That's something that I felt and the board felt was probably something we needed to improve on in VicDef. And Andrew has lots of new and interesting responsibilities. One of them is working with me on the National Disability Insurance Scheme and getting VicDef really well positioned for that. The other is on strategy and planning, and Andrew's also working with Ernst & Young to manage this process. And before we open it up to you, we wanted to just tell you what are some of the things that are coming up through the survey responses that we've got so far and some of our other consultations. It'll give you a sense of the sorts of things people are talking about.
Hello everyone, it's really good to see you all here tonight, and hello to you at home. I hope that you can see us clearly. I had a quick look before on Niaz's phone and it looked amazingly clear. It's quite impressive, so no glitches so far. Some feedback that we've got so far. We have conducted consultation with the senior management team, the board, our strategic leadership group, and we've also started consultation with all staff members, and some of that has been fed back to me. I'm kind of getting it all and then sending it on to EY. We also have 2 online surveys at the moment, and we'll recommend that you actually have a look at one of those later on so that you can give feedback through the survey too. So far to date, we've had 35 responses for our staff survey and 53 responses for our community survey, which is really impressive. We're very happy with that. There are some definite and clear themes coming out so far. One which will not surprise anyone here, the biggest one so far, is car parking. That keeps coming up again and again and again and again. Another one, and because remember, many of these are staff, so this actually relates to the experience of staff within VicDef, have talked about the disconnection between having multiple floors, at the level 3s and 4s and 2, and the way that the office is set up isn't optimal for us to work collaboratively together. And so that's not unexpected at all. The fact that our facilities are getting a little bit dated. I personally love the 80s look, but some people do not like that here. And also, we've had a lot of people comment about, if we move, where should we move to? And they're saying not far, as in close to the city. We're getting responses saying we should move into the CBD, some who say we should have a head office in the CBD and other service offices around the CBD. But consistent so far has been that we should stay within East Melbourne, North Melbourne, South Melbourne area. So that's interesting that most people see that these areas are the most central for people throughout all of metropolitan Melbourne and beyond into regional areas to access. That leads to another key theme that's coming out, is public transport. That is, most people are identifying that as being very, very important. Trams, trains, buses, everything. Some staff have said that it's not, we need to install more bike racks and be more bike friendly, which is a good point too. Also, we're getting some themes that are coming through have been about us, as Chris mentioned, aligning more closely with other organisations. That have been pointed out: VDEI, Victorian Deaf Education Institute, DCA, Deaf Children Australia, who else? Just the sense of being kind of all together as community groups in the one spot. That's come up quite regularly as a theme too. They're the main points. As Chris said, also about reception. Again, this is to do with this specific building, about the multiple receptions, better use of space on the ground floor. The ramp has come up again and again in the community consultation, that we don't have an accessible ramp yet. We do have the wheelchair lift, but it's not optimal. So that's coming up on a regular basis. Some people have said Albert Street is a terrible place and not a good place to work in or to visit. It's too corporate. Some say it's not professional enough. So we're getting all kinds of responses. So what we're looking for, all of you, including you at home, is whatever you think is appropriate for VicDeaf, for our clients, for our stakeholders, for the community, put it forward to us. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. So what I just want to do is remind people that are streaming in that if you have a comment, a question, or something you'd like to contribute, you can do that two ways. The first way is via email, and that's at info@vicdeaf.com.au. I feel like I'm on the Royal Children's Hospital appeal. And via SMS, which is 0419 232 456. So there are two ways. If you're streaming in, you can email in or SMS. And as I said earlier, if you could identify who you are, that would be helpful, but don't feel that you have to. Michael will then keep an eye on the email and the SMS, and we'll feed that through into the discussion. So that's what we want to do, is set the scene, give you a bit of feedback about where things are at to date. Now it's over to you to just provide you with the opportunity to have your say. If you are not comfortable doing that, you've really just come along to hear what's happening and you'd rather contribute in another way, you can do that by sending Andrew an email, and we've got his details there, and they'll be up on the website as part of this streaming. And you can also go online and fill in the questionnaire. But what we hope tonight is that some of you feel ready and eager to tell us what you think about the building and the future. So can I just open it up to people? Yep, so we'll just stop for a tick and pop that slide up. Okay, we're right to go. So what I'd like to do is just open it up to the floor or to people who are streaming in. It can be anything at all that you think relates to this topic. So maybe if you could just pop your hand up and then come up the front. And as I said, Michael will keep an eye on any questions or comments that are coming through. So is there anyone that would like to kick us off and get started?
Okay, hello everybody. I'm sure you all know me, I'm Anne Bremner. I think I'm the second eldest. No, not age-wise, no, I'm wrong here. I'm the second most frequent visitor to this organisation, to Mac. So him and I were here before any of you. So can I share my experiences of when I first went to the Deaf Club, as we used to call it back in the day. we had a square. There was 3 buildings on that property square, and there was the chapel in the centre of that square. And it was a wonderful, ideal environment because you had hear service at one area, so people who were hearing impaired, who didn't associate with the signing deaf, were comfortable going to that building. Over on the other side, there was the deaf club, where deaf people went. And they didn't go and see the people at work, the staff or anything, they just simply went to the deaf club. But if they needed the services from the Deaf Society, they'd wander over, talk to somebody. It was a wonderful environment. So the staff were housed at the back of that property. It was wonderful. And the staff that were in that staff building, there was 2 floors. The bottom floor was Big Deaf, and the top floor was the other deaf organisations such as Deaf Sports, and there was VCOD. I never remember the right name nowadays, Deaf Victoria, but oh, please change it for goodness sake. Vic Deaf, Deaf Victoria. It's terribly confusing, especially for somebody of my years and vintage. But anyway, I will write a letter and leave a motion on that to get all of that changed. Anyway, sorry for that bit of humour and digressing, but we were so comfortable in that environment, it worked exceptionally well. And I think it would be really nice if it was possible to find a place similar to what we had before. Richmond would be a great place. There's plenty of old factories in that location, and there may be, with the TAFE closing there as well, there's space there, masses of space there. And as you mentioned before, I don't know if it was Andrew or yourself, Christine, but you were talking about other organisations coming together, and great idea in principle, but please consider the fact that you don't want to have an organisation that's in direct competition with Vic Deaf. There could be inherent dangers there. I'm sure I've got lots of other things I need to say, but I'll go and sit down and let others have a go. When I think of something, I'll come back to the stage. Thank you.
Any other comments? How are we going, Michael? Nothing yet. Melissa?
Please risk the opportunity. We also need to look at other established places before we move. And Anne made a really good point about the old property where everything was housed on that one property. The Matthew Veal social room, the deaf community worked together there to set that up to become a deaf club. And they already set up fire alarms, hearing loop, everything is there in that environment. So maybe we could work with them to use that as a community centre and to use that as a deaf club because it's already set up. Big Deaf can work with that group to provide a community centre, so that's one idea. And services and service provision can be a different building because we've already got that centre, there's no point in duplicating that.
Any other comments? Feedback?
Let's just say, don't be fearful, please come on. You'll love it. And the problem for me is that I haven't been here for such a long time, and I just find it difficult. I don't necessarily feel so welcome here. And that the old building is like a happy family, and that for me is so important for the deaf community. You need to feel connected with the sports, with the staff, with every aspect of the deaf community. The elderly deaf community community together with the young ones as well. That's what I'd like to see. So we need to find a better way. We need to find some other area where we can come together as a family, as a group of deaf people working together with staff as well. I think it'd be a really good idea to have things in the English text and in Auslan. And because I do understand the deaf community exceptionally well, when you talk about accommodation, that particular word, I know it has different meanings depending on the context. I do understand that, but for deaf people, they'll be going, oh, where are they going to go and stay? Oh, they're going to become an accommodation centre, as in somewhere to go and stay the night. So the wording is not appropriate. It's fine in the commercial world, but you're targeting deaf people. You want deaf people's feedback. And where are the everyday deaf people? They're not in this audience tonight. I'm very disappointed. I thought there would be more staff here. It's not a criticism, Chris, but there's only one member of the board here as well. Oh, there's two, sorry. Yeah, there's two. So, where are the board members? Yeah, I know I was on the board, Matt, but I'm no longer on the board. Yes, Hilary did put her hand up before, so I recognise that Hilary and Mac are the only two representatives from the board. We need to bring more people along and just have more input. Another idea could also be, and I don't know if it's relevant to what's been talked about, but if you could provide a survey asking how many deaf people, how many of them actually look at the website. I've asked a few deaf people myself and they go, oh, I don't really understand that website. The language on the website is very, very corporate. It really is, and it's not accessible by grassroots deaf people. So I think it's really important for you to understand and know that, Chris. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anne. I think you make some really important points. One of them about the language using accommodation. We are aware that maybe that was confusing for people because sometimes you think about accommodation when you're going on a holiday rather than, you know, the property and the building that we own here. So thank you for the feedback. I think we have learnt that we could have probably got that a bit better. In terms of the staff, I think why there are not many here tonight is because we've run separate consultation sessions for them and they've been participating in the surveys. They probably felt that they've had their opportunity, but again, it's a good point about just having more people mixing, you know, with each other around this really important issue. In relation to the board, I think it's a similar thing that last night we had our board meeting and Ernst & Young came along and had a special consultation with the board. There were some board members who wanted to attend tonight but couldn't, just because they wanted to hear what you, the community members, had to say. But if that just gives some, not an excuse, but just an explanation as to, I think, why there's not many staff members here, because I think they feel like they've had the opportunity to, you know, provide their input and feedback. One of the things that is additional to what Andrew had spoken about is the fact that we are in a corporate building, and as I said earlier, we have tenants here, which is great because it gives us income, which contributes to our bottom line financially. If we were to move away from this building and get somewhere, you know, in Richmond or, you know, other places that people feel is suitable, do you think, and Anne, you mentioned this, I think, about it's okay to be with other organisations but not ones that are maybe directly in competition with our business. do you have a view on who or which organisations we could more closely align or co-locate with? Does anyone have any strong views on that?
Well, like I've said before, if you're in direct competition, and we are in direct competition with other organisations, people may say, oh no, you know, they're a community organisation, but sorry, let me rephrase. With community organisations such as Sports and Deaf Victoria, I think that's fine. With the interpreting organisation, I think that's fine. Do you have any ideas from the audience? Help me. Any ideas? A person from the audience said the deaf community needs a one-stop shop. Why don't you come up the front? Just give some examples like you said. I think the deaf community don't want to attend one location for a service. For example, let's see, I need to see a case manager. I have an issue, I talk to the case manager and the case manager says, no, you need advocacy. And you have to go all the way over to St Kilda, and people are just not going to be happy with that. People don't want to travel to different locations for little bits of services or assistance. It makes sense, because we are a small community, that a one-stop shop is more appropriate, where you go to one location and you can receive all the services and information you need. So that would be the perfect world scenario, and I think suitable for the deaf community.
Thanks, Melissa. Just before you go, one of the things that's come up, especially around having a club and a bar and social activities, sporting activities, etc., is that for the younger generation, some of the things that they want they're changing, and technology is changing and people's needs are different. And Hillary, you may even have something to contribute here, but because of your advocacy role, what are you hearing from younger members of the community about the sorts of things they need?
It's an interesting issue, because it's very hard to reach the young deaf people in Victoria. We're still finding out what they want. We have 2 young people who joined our board last month, so we're getting a feel of what the young deaf community want and need currently. But I think the best place to talk to young people is in Kew, where I mentioned that community centre. There are a lot of young people go to the community centre for cricket, tennis, football, table tennis, and sport is obviously an important part of the deaf community. Maybe James Hale can talk about young people in sport. I think that's where you will get some information from the future older deaf community, so from young people currently, particularly in sports arena. I can understand the young person aspect, but I would like to talk about baby boomers like us. I think we're neglected. We're a neglected area from Vic Deaf. There's nothing for us as baby boomers. There is the seniors group, which we're not quite there yet. I think Max agreed with that. So what can Vic Deaf provide to the baby boomer generation? That's a question we have. We know we've been through the old times at Jolimont, and we've changed to the modern East Melbourne building. But I think it's still important for young people to have role models that they can find and talk to. When I first attended the Deaf Club, I learned from a lot of older people where they would tell me their stories. And I feel now when I see a young person, they're not really respecting of an older person and their stories. You know, times change, but I don't mean all young people. There are young people out there who are really interested in the older deaf community and some who aren't. You know, there are other communities out there, like the Lithuanian community or the German community, the Italian community, and they're a very strong, cohesive group. And I'm thinking, why can't the deaf community be like that? We're a strong central group.
Yeah.
Thanks, and that comment was really interesting about what we can do for the baby boomers. And I think we're also about to start planning for our next strategic plan. And those kind of questions, I think, are going to be really important in that. So, absolutely relates to accommodation too. But just as soon as you said that, I thought, that's a really good point. And we're just about to start that whole process. So I'm certainly going to keep that in mind for how we kind of consider services and planning for that, and talk to more people and talk to you again about that, because I think that's really important. So just want to address that.
What year did the baby boomers stop? Was it 64 or 1963? Can anyone remember? Was it 64? 63. 1963. I just wanted to let everyone know I'm not a baby boomer. Just. Okay, I think who had a James and Paul. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Paul.
It was nice to hear from Anne, and she had interesting comments which made me think.
Had a special area. If we
stay in the same building, I think we need a special area for children or for staff. Have a coffee break. You know, you have to go to Degani's to get coffee and tea. Maybe a place here would be better.
Copy. Okay, buy food, but more
Or a place where you can buy small snacks and sandwiches for lunch from here.
or
Cakes from here.
Make all the couple more. What I want for them.
It makes staff comfortable and are able to choose what they would like to eat in their morning and afternoon tea breaks. Hi, Chris. My name is James Hale. I've got two hats on at the moment. I work here at DSRV. I'm the DSRV coordinator just in the office next door to this building, and I'm also the president of Melbourne Deaf Cricket Club. Okay, so in terms of the younger generation and comments about that, I agree with what Melissa said and Anne about the lack of respect that young people have for the older generation. I agree with that. We need to lead younger people into the deaf community, teach them about how to work with the deaf community, respect the deaf community, etc. With the social centre at Hayes Paddock in Kew, the Matthew Beale social room, social room, it might be appropriate for Big Deaf to use that location for social events and or meetings and, you know, presentations, young person's activities, older person's activities. There is a playground there, there's a walking track, there's a lot of car parks, there's a bar and a kitchen there. There's new chairs and new tables, so it's modern. There's showers and toilets, it's very modern and new. It's not just a sports club for cricket and soccer, it's really a deaf community hub. It's where people can socialise and or work, where they can touch base, chat or even have weddings. So So if you want to know more about Hayes Paddock, I can provide more information to you without charge. But the most important thing is to coordinate with each other about the use of that location. Secondly, my comment about this building. I've been working here for 9 months in this building. I find it a good building. It's a great building, but one of the problems is of course car parking. It's terrible. You have to look and search and drive around. I've moved my car twice today already. It's very frustrating. So one option I'm thinking of is, I actually emailed Andrew today. I won't be able to attend the meeting tomorrow, but say you have a meeting at night, you know the car parks underneath this building may be able to be given to the deaf community. So we could use the car park under this building after 5 p.m. rather than looking for a car park on Albert Street and the other streets surrounding. So that might be an option. Secondly, we could ask council perhaps to give us some parking bays for the day, so big deaf car parking bays on the street for 30 minutes, so people can just pop into the building and then pop out. So not the whole street, just a few car parking bays on Albert Street, perhaps 6. I think 6 would be enough. So big car parking bays. And you've mentioned before that this building has 5 levels. We've got ground floor 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Perhaps we don't need to look for a smaller office location, but just 1 floor for information, 1 floor for deaf organisations, 1 floor for sports and recreation. The 4th floor, I don't know, you know, a cafe is a good idea, you know, where people can go and have some, you know, breakfast, lunch and dinner, a childcare centre perhaps. So it could be, we could downsize or we could stay here and use all of the floors in this building. So they're just my suggestions for now. Thank you for listening.
We have a question or comment that has come through from the stream, so Michael will just share that.
I received 2 comments. So the first one is, I don't like the idea of the Matthew Beale social room, because it's not easy to access. There's no train station nearby. I would like a central location near the CBD. What about the Bluestone building on St Kilda Road? That would be great to be there. We could have they've got a deaf cafe over there. And the person wants to remain anonymous.
Thank you very much for your comment and feedback. And this is what is great, because not everyone agrees with everyone else, and that's, you know, what makes the community really interesting. But what we need to do is just try and hear what the various views are. So thank you to that person for sending through their comments. And the second one, Michael.
My name's Zed. Z-E-D. You mentioned that if Big Deaf weren't going to change its services, why would you want to move again? You know, we were at JSSC and now we've moved here, and why would you want to move again? It's a waste of money. You know, you don't want to move 100 times. We should have thought of this before in the first place.
Thank you, Zed. That's a really good comment and question, and probably one that a lot of people are thinking about. There's a couple of responses there. One is, from time to time, organisations grow or they get smaller or their funding changes, and you need to be doing things in different ways. And sometimes you see organisations that are in buildings that just, because they get older and their facilities wear out, and then you've got to start paying a lot of money for the upkeep of the building. So sometimes you've got to make some financial decisions about the building, especially if you own the building. The other thing is, there's a big question for VicDef is, do we want to be a property manager? So at the moment, we're managing the tenancies of the people that, not the small deaf organisations as much, but the larger organisations. So we spend a lot of time and energy in working to make sure that all of the floors are occupied. If someone moves out, we've got to arrange for someone else to come in. And we need to make a decision, is that what we want to be spending our time on? Or do we want to do something different that means that we moved from here? One option is that, you know, we sell this building and get something else that meets all of the needs that we're talking about. We could sell this building and rent somewhere else, so then it's not our problem if it starts to get older, because someone else has to pay to update it. There's lots of different options, and we're not saying that we are moving from this building, but what we're saying is we want to find out what people think as to what we want to do in the future. But it's an excellent point, I think, that Zed makes, in that you don't want to be having upheaval for the community and for the staff and moving around every 8 years, 10 years. I think you want to try and make long-term decisions that are good decisions for the future. But I think it was such a big move from Jolimont to here, and trying to get something that was close to Jolimont. But we're probably just now down the track at a different point in time where we need to just revisit and ask ourselves these important questions. Any more, Michael? One more.
Okay, one more comment. In terms of James's comments, if we have parks for VicDef on Albert Street, hearing people would complain about it, I'm sure. Or hearing people would just, you know, exploit them and use them regardless. They would abuse the system. Well, there will be people who abuse the system.
Yes, thank you also for that comment. I think car parking in the CBD in Melbourne is getting more expensive, and it's certainly getting harder to park in the city. And Albert Street here is unusual as well, because it's got the bike lane, which is set up a bit differently to a lot of other places. And I think dealing with council, it's a great suggestion, but dealing with council I don't think would be that straightforward in getting car parks allocated for us. I know previously I did quite a bit of work with Melbourne City Council about getting accessible car spaces closer to some public buildings, and that wasn't very easy, let alone allocating some spaces. But I think this is what's great, is we've got to think a bit outside the square and, you know, think of some good ideas and other options, but sometimes they're difficult to make that happen. Hillary, did you want to say something? Thank you. Anne?
Okay, so I'd like to go back in time, a bit of a history lesson. Just a history reminder, I'm sure you already know. Now, not here, but over at Jolimont, we had our first fundraiser to establish the Deaf Society. And deaf people themselves were the fundraisers, because many deaf people felt that they had lost their home. Sometimes people say, you know, Albert Street is the Deaf Club, and I say, no, this is the Deaf Society on Albert Street, it's not the Deaf Club. So that's my perspective, and many of my friends think the same. So just to let you know that the first establishment of the Deaf Club was by deaf people for deaf people, so they could meet each other face to face. Then it went in another direction where there were offices, etc. So I'm hoping it's possible to find a solution where we can combine both, a club and an office scenario. But I have a question for you, Chris. I'm not sure if you're able to answer this on the spot, but I'd be interested to know. You mentioned before about this building, some floors are tenanted out and we receive rent from those tenants. Plus you have other offices within Victoria where you pay rent for those offices. How do you balance that out? Are you better off like receiving rental monies, or are you expending a lot of money paying rent? But second part of that question, or third part of the question is this building, I saw on the website, in Communicate actually, that the deaf and hard of hearing communities, and I thought, what's this? So I asked the question, what is the language of the deaf community? What is it? Anybody? It's Auslan. Do the hard of hearing community have a language? No. So I think we need to be careful. We can't combine deaf and hard of hearing. They make strange bedfellows. But I promise I won't come back to the front. I'm done for tonight.
Thank you, Anne. So I'll respond to the first comment first, which was your comment around the fact that we own this building and we've got other tenants in it, and then we lease other properties or venues around Victoria. Part of the work that Ernst & Young are doing with us is they're actually looking at all of the leasehold properties that we have, and they will do an assessment of, what has it cost us over the last few years. They do some very good analysis about, are we getting the best value for money in terms of the types of properties that we're leasing for our various services. So there'll be some, I think, good current marketplace information and assessment in relation to our rental properties that they can provide us with information. And the second point is then about this building was built in 1988, and as Andrew said before, there's some nice 1980s features in this building, but at some point things start to go wrong, things like the carpet, there's wear and tear, and it's great when you move in and everything's fresh and new, but at some point you have to start paying money to have the upkeep. Now, if we did stay in this building, or if we moved somewhere else or built something brand new that we owned, you just want to make sure that we have a strategy around our income so that we can continue to have the necessary upkeep of a building so that you're not having to move, as I said earlier, every so often. So I think there's different answers to those questions because it depends at a point in time sometimes about the services that you need, how many places that you need to rent. And sometimes renting is great because you're in charge in some ways. You can move when you need to, and you can be a bit flexible around that and not have the responsibility. But there's no question for us, this is East Melbourne. It is beautiful location opposite, gorgeous parks and gardens in Victoria. Even though the car parking is difficult, it is a really good location in terms of trams and buses. So we own a very good piece of real estate in terms of an asset that the organisation has, which the organisation recognises, as you said, Anne, that it's from the historical sense and the history and the community of many years ago that allowed us to sell the property and buy this one. So it's about making good decisions that are the best for the community. But I think certainly what's coming out of tonight is people are saying something that's a bit about a social facility and amenity, as well as maybe some services, is something that probably would meet a lot of people's needs. And that can help young people, you know, and baby boomers and the seniors as well. So I think that there's probably a bit of a theme coming out in relation to that. I think we have another question, and now I'm just keeping an eye on the time as well. So this is someone that has streamed in a question.
Another comment from Zed. I know things change, things grow, but this building has 5 floors that are habitable. Also, it's close to the CBD. And we moved from Jolimont to here. If we move to Richmond or move to more of an easterly direction or even west or north, what about people who can't access the location if they're coming from a different direction?
Thanks again, Zed, for your comment, and it's a really good one. There's a couple of things there. I think if we were to move from here, we would want to do a lot of planning and a lot of research so that the building that we moved into was close to public transport and was hopefully as central as it could be. There would be no point us leaving here and going to something that was more of a disadvantage to the community than we currently have. It just wouldn't make sense. So we would want to make a really, you know, smart and clever decisions about where we moved if we did move. And a lot of the feedback has been about make sure there's better parking and public transport. The other thing that we did was Andrew did a piece of work with Ernst & Young where we got the postcodes of all of our staff members who, where do they actually live. And it was interesting that for the staff, they come from all over Melbourne. They're not, you know, some organisations, everyone lives in Northcote and they all come from the northern suburbs. For VicDef, we've got people who are living, staff members who live in the eastern suburbs, the western suburbs, the northern suburbs and the southern suburbs. So a lot of them have said, you know, East Melbourne, yeah, the parking's not great, but it is quite convenient for most people to sort of get into East Melbourne. But there are other areas, if we were close in towards the CBD, that you could achieve the same result potentially, that they're going to a different place, but they're not disadvantaged because it's still reasonably central. Are there any other comments, people that have, you know, now that you've heard the conversation, you want to challenge that or add to it in any way?
Thanks, Chris. Just thinking about the car parking issue. I have noticed working here, when you look at Dallas Hall, just up the road, they've got a car park there on the corner, masses of car parking spaces. It's never used. What about asking about their car park and how that could work? Most of the time I see it's not used at all. I think they might share that environment with the hospital, I'm not sure. But most of the time that corner spot is completely vacant, there's no cars there at all. So possibly we could look at using that. And say for example we do decide to stay here. On the ground floor, Deaf Victoria and DSA share an office together. I think maybe those two organisations, DSA and Deaf Victoria, could move up onto another level, second, third or fourth floor, and make that ground floor purely information only. So people can come in and ask about their deaf, they can come in and ask about deaf sports, ask about schooling, ask about events that are coming up, presentations, and also develop perhaps a small cafe in the corner, somewhere where you could go in and buy, you know, a cup of tea and a cake or something, and then there's information alongside that. So as I said before, the two offices, Deaf Victoria and Deaf Sports Australia, to be moved, relocated, and that would allow that whole area to be used as information. And also, just one area that's really quite dangerous is the flooring down there. It can be very, very slippery. If it's raining heavily, people, I think, it's quite risky. Somebody nearly fell over the other day coming into that front foyer area, and I think we need better lighting down there as well. So that's a risky environment, so we need to be mindful of that. And the ramp is as such, the way the wheelchair ramp works isn't very good. I think we need to make sure the environment is more welcoming. We have a cafe, a better ramp system, and as I said before, the two offices should be moved and that area becomes totally information provision only, and it's to cover all aspects of the deaf community as well.
Thank you, James. Just in terms of the Freemasons, the Dallas Books Hall, that site is actually being redeveloped, and I think they're wanting to start later this year or early next year. So there is going to be, I think, a combination of something for the Freemasons and some accommodation. I think the hospital is also looking at some space. So there might be a short-term thing that we could look at, but I think the longer term is they're going to redevelop that part of Dallas Books Hall, because you're right, it's just a big block of land on prime real estate. The second thing that you raised was the ground floor, and it's interesting, just today our management team at VicDeaf were having a discussion around the information centre and the ground floor, and we talked about that as an option, that maybe you could create a different energy down on the ground floor and relocate some of the tenants that are down there. So I think that's in the mix for us to talk about a bit more and consider. Things like the lighting and the flooring, yes, I think if we stay in this building, there are some things that we would need to consider in terms of upgrade. And we have some design options for better accessibility at the front of this building. And it's not just people in wheelchairs; it's also people who are frail and have difficulty getting up and down the stairs. We've just deferred that until we go through this process, because those things are very expensive, and we didn't want to invest in that if we make a decision not to be here longer term. But if we stay in this building, we absolutely are committed and recognise that we need to have better accessibility. So I think they were most of the things that you've raised, and I think Mac would like to come up.
So I'm going to take my President of VicDeaf hat off, and I'm just Mac Adam at the moment. And I work at the School for the Deaf part-time as a teacher at BCD. I notice the students there. Students are interesting. During my time when I was at school, we knew about the Deaf Society, we understood it, we knew what it was, they came, provided services and talked to us, but children nowadays don't know anything about VicDeaf. I have to talk to them and explain to them what VicDeaf is. We have so many students being integrated nowadays, and the deaf community is very disenfranchised at the moment. Some deaf students know about the Deaf Society, some don't. So we really need to look at that issue. We had a sports day just recently at MSAC. So many schools came together. It's a fascinating experience. It was great to see James Hale in attendance, encouraging the kids, talking to them, informing them. And that's what we need to see VicDeaf doing as well, talking to those children, explain to them what they can offer. Most of those children don't know what's available to them when they get older. They're our future, those children. When we've moved, and gone on, what's going to happen to those kids? They're going to walk in our shoes. And we do have a responsibility to pass on information, inform the younger deaf people that are coming through. If people wanted to be on a board or involved in a community, we'd have elections and then you get in and it's great. But nowadays you can just walk in. And we have to ask people, we have to beg people to get involved. It's not right. Things have changed. If we had a community centre, that would expose everyone to the role models and what we have, get people involved, instead of going out there begging people for their involvement. I've probably digressed, but what we need to think about is our future. And as James said, we've got to think of Q, we've got to think about all these other aspects that have been raised tonight, and how do we bring it all together? Okay, I'm back to being Mac, President of the Board. And I know it's going to be an uphill task. I understand that, but I'd like to say to everybody, thank you for your time today and your questions, and also for the responses that have come through on SMS. Thank you. Thank you to everybody that's watching us at home. So this is a work in progress, and thank you, Chris, for facilitating this evening. This will not be the first and the last meeting or consultation. There will be subsequent meetings and consultations, and the board will be very keen to hear your responses and feedback. I don't know when we'll meet again, whether it'll be here or whatever, but thank you so much, Chris, for your effort tonight.
I think Mac has summed up nicely, and yeah, on behalf of Andrew and I as well, just to say thank you for your participation, and some of the things that have been spoken about are things that have come up before, but there's been some new and different things tonight as well, especially about who goes to bed with who, Anne, in terms of bed partners with deaf and hard of hearing, but take your point in terms of, you know, what you're raising there as things for us to think about. Can I also thank the team from VicDev who have helped us with all the technology tonight. We'll have a bit of a review and see how well it worked. And also thank you to all the people who are watching and streamed in, particularly to those who took the time to provide some comments and questions. So thank you everyone, and have a safe trip home. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, just this.